back way through StreamYard using your link, but it looks like it works better with a cell phone.
Sometimes technology, Mike, when you got so much fantastic news about LSU recruiting, I blame Nick Saban. Mike, personally, I think it's Nick Saban trying to do something with our feet, but
that could be. He was in town today, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's what I hear. He went over to Catholic.
Shelton Sampson.
Mike, what very quickly, is there a buzz around Louisiana coaches when he starts going to those schools? Has to be, right? I mean, that's got to be the talk of the town. I mean, I hate it, but it's got to be.
Well, and it's also obvious who he views as difference makers. He doesn't just come to Louisiana for a particular recruit unless he views them as a difference maker. He'll send an assistant coach for a guy who's mid-level, or maybe he wants to offer that, but he wants them to come to camp first. But if he's going to come to your school in January, while he's still trying to wrap up his class of 2022, that pretty much tells you what he thinks of Shelton Sampson. And at the same time, Catholic High is a school that has prospects year in and year out. And, he wants to have some inroads there and stake his claim while Brian Kelly's, trying to get his feet planted.
So, Mike, LSU obviously had a very large recruiting weekend. I mean, a lot of guys, Kyron Lacey committed from the portal. You had some guys in there. What did you think about the weekend? How did you think it went for LSU?
I like it, but at the same time, I also think, look, first of all, LSU needs bodies. And if you're going to say, okay, if you're going to, rate the guys that they've gotten in the transfer portal, I'm still going to go back to the first one and Miles Frazier back in December. Right. But the roster is in such disrepair that they've got to have bodies. So, I think there's some good football players there. Do I think there's some future first-team All-SEC guys that have come on board? I'm not going to say that. But I think there's some guys that can definitely help LSU and compete. And like I said, they've got to have personnel in the program, and because there's just huge need areas. But at the same time, you want to know, why did Dwight McLaughlin decide to leave? What happened there? I think that there's maybe some rhetoric out there and some reasons why on multiple kids that they've allowed to fester that might not necessarily be true or half true. So then you have the debate that LSU takes 2 from Arkansas, and who got the better end of the deal? Did Arkansas get better with the one they got from LSU?
Yeah, and Mike, they're talking about you. They're saying that you transferred to ULL with the red gear on today in the comments. Oh, I just think it's funny. Anyway, so we do have a couple questions in here firing for you. Aunt Marshall says,
"How do you know it's not Ohio State or Oklahoma or Louisville?"
I don't know, Mike, but they're just saying you transferred to ULL.
If I'm going to wear any UL red, it'll be Louisville, not UL Lafayette. I assure you.
There you go. But Ant kind of leaves it an open-ended question here. He just says, #ask Mike. What kids do you think that the LSU has a good chance of signing in February?
Well, I like where LSU sits with Danny Lewis, and I think all along Jacoby Matthews. I don't see a scenario where LSU loses him. But at the same time, this is the nutty world of NIL. You don't know who's going to come in and do something crazy from out of state. And when you think you've got a kid sewn up and maybe you have the best relationship with a particular recruit than anybody else, at the end of the day, you're not going to fault a kid if somebody's going to offer him crazy money that can be life-changing for a household.
Right.
But I still like where LSU is with him. I think Citizen could be interesting. He's getting pretty provocative with Auburn and Florida and some others. So I don't think that one is as locked away as a lot of people think. I think LSU still got some work to do.
Mike, I think if you get those guys, if you end up with a Jacoby Matthews, if you end up signing a Danny Lewis, and maybe you add another that maybe we're not talking about right now, and then you start getting some of these kids in the transfer portal, I mean, LSU does look like they've put together a pretty good class considering all things in the early signing period, right? I mean, this looks pretty salvageable from what they've done.
Yeah, I like the way the transfer portal is. They're filling some needs, but like I said on my show last week, I'm going to get darn excited when you finally show me that there's a transfer portal center that was maybe a first, second team, all conference type of guy that can come in right away and be a first class center in the SEC. So that way you're not, playing around with thoughts of Emory Jones being a center or anybody else. Fitzgerald West being able to get in the program, develop, and not get thrown to the wolves because he's going to need time.
Mike, with that being said, and a depth issue, you brought up an interesting topic that we were just talking about, and I talked about positions that I worry about. Is there a position that worries you along this team in reference to a depth perspective?
I think there's a lot of them, not necessarily that you're, needing anxiety pills about, but I still think LSU is going to need a quarterback in the portal at some point, maybe after spring football. I like the running back spot. I'm anxious to see what John Emery looks like in spring football. I wouldn't mind to see a tight end come through, but look, you bring in Danny Lewis. But if there's a good senior tight end out there, a guy that's got 1 year of eligibility, yes, indeed. You're not going to turn away a couple more offensive linemen, especially center, like I mentioned. Defensive line, linebacker, corners. I mean, every spot you can use some guys. But let's go ahead and be done with deep snappers and kickers for now, if that's okay.
Mike, what is that? I mean, I get that you need depth there, but what is that? What is
that?
that?
And that's another one. We talk about what happened with Dwight McGlothern. What's going on with Quentin Skinner?
Look, and they had even talked about, and then it somewhat been a little bit reported that there could be academic issues, but then Brad Davis.
I'm told that's not true.
Right, I know. So, I mean, what's the issue there? I mean, I don't know. And Mike, here's another thing though.
Let me just say this. Okay, I get that, and I'm not. We don't know every ins and outs of everything, and it could be one of those deals where just a little bit of information makes you dangerous on a particular kid in a scenario. But there's one thing that has been true about even through these last couple of years of bad LSU football is LSU special teams have, Greg McMahon, did the work and had some guys that got the job done. So I don't know what's going on with Quentin Skinner. I don't know if it's something that can be worked out. Obviously, he hasn't hit the portal. So I don't know what's going to happen.
I just think that it solidifies what this roster was like under Orgeron and the culture. Honestly, Mike, I mean, what the uphill battle Brian Kelly might need, because if you're having to do that on special teams, I mean,
yeah, but here's the thing, Blake. Brian Kelly impresses every kid and family member that he sits down with.
Right.
So if there's an issue with Quentin Skinner, you can't tell me that can't get fixed up with one meeting with him sitting across the desk from you.
Or Brian Polian. I mean, Mike, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, Brian Polian's just the same.
And I'm just singling out him. Any kid that's got questions or whatever. So we're going to find out.
Mike, there's a lot of questions firing in here right now about Harold Perkins. I don't know what to make of it. What do you make of this?
I think that's a tall order. I don't think Blake Baker was recruiting him. He went weeks without hearing from LSU. So I think, to me, that's a tall order. And with all the NIL money that's going on in College Station, not to say that there isn't something that couldn't be done here, but look, you got to get him. You got to get him on campus here in the coming weeks. And if that happens, anything can happen. But he is committed to Texas A&M, and
right.
That interview I saw 3 or 4 weeks ago didn't look like LSU had a shot in hell.
I completely agree there. Something interesting, and moving on there, Cortez Hankton officially announced today, Mike, getting away from recruiting. Look, I don't know if I know me and you joke off the air about me having some homerism, and maybe I do, but it does feel like this staff is better than what we've seen from the top down in a long time. Now, there was a lot of good coaches on the staff last year. Not saying that there wasn't, but what do you feel about the staff being officially done today with the official announcement?
I think, look, we're going to see about on the field coaching. But the fact of the matter is there's probably some darn good coaches on the staff that maybe might not look as good as they could look if it was a normal LSU roster. And it's going to take 2 or 3 years for them to look the way they want to look. But I don't think there's any doubt from a recruiting standpoint, just calling around and talking to sources at the different schools where these guys were at, that all these guys are big personality, high character guys that like to recruit. So that's a big plus. Also, like the player personnel department and the guys that have been added there. You know, a lot of times when you talk about recruiting, you're mostly zeroing in on the position coaches and the guys that are, you know, part of the 10-man, you know, coaching staff. Well, the truth is a lot of guys in the building are the ones that are doing more of the phone calls and interacting with recruits than they are. Those guys just end up getting most of the credit, if not all of it. So it's the Mason Smiths and the Arsenals and those guys in the world that are just as important.
Dick Jones.
J.R. Belton. J.R. Belton is you want to talk another great personality. I mean, they've got some guys in the building that just, you know, you're the happy-go-lucky types that are good conversation kids that a lot of these high school prospects relate to.
Mike, so let me ask this. Who's helping Brian Kelly do that? Meaning, who do you think's in his ear telling him that? Because look, I mean, the national media would have made it believe when he was hired, oh well, shit, he has no idea what it's like in Louisiana, what he needs to do, what kind of staff he needs to put around him. But Mike, if I'm being honest, like what you just said, he's putting good guys around the state and been in recruiting. Who do you think is in his ear though? Because he's not doing it by himself.
No, well, I think he leans heavily on Polian, but I do think that there's probably, you know, been more than a few times where Frank Wilson, you know, has to say, no, look, you got this little scenario here, or there's this little, you know, not to say political, or there's this, you know, that's the way they do things in this area of the state is this way, or, you know, or I know this guy and you got to go through him. And, you know, that coach at that particular high school, you want to catch him at this time of day, or he's going to, you know, you get what you want through this guy, you know, just whatever the scenario is. Frank Wilson, and there's other guys in the building like Mason Smith and Arsenal, who was at Virginia, J.R. Belton knows the lay of the land, and many others. So I got to believe they're helping him. But I think at the same time, they also want to chart their own path and say, you know, you did things that way, but we're going to do them this way. I'm listening to you. Let's see if we can get it done this way. You know, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. So, and look, that's why I'm also wanting to see whether it's the remaining official visits that come in, but also when they start scheduling junior days and when they start hosting visitors for spring football practices. What are some of the changes that they do there? Is there any unique things that we haven't seen? That's what I'm really excited to see.
Mike, a couple more, and you've been gracious with your time, and we'll get you out of here. But this is another one. I mean, Mike, I'm just going down all the comments, and Chris asked, has the running back Trey Holly from Union been offered? I mean, that literally is the 6th time it's been asked. Anything on Trey Holly?
Yeah, I mean, is there a deal where you know, does he need to get an offer from the new staff? Maybe so, but he's a no-brainer. Look, I remember last summer, and I tweeted out the photo, and I got to dig it up because it's a good picture. But it was him and Trevor Etienne, and Etienne is not a very tall running back, and then Trey's even shorter than him. So I think a lot of people were discounting Holly and saying, man, he's kind of small. But man, when you watch him in big games and he's durable, I think whether it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire and some of the other running backs that we've seen come through here and some of the NFL running backs, the days of, you know, discounting a guy. I remember like it was yesterday. I tell the story all the time at a camp, a spring camp, and there's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you're looking at him, He's not going to wasn't going to impress you with his height. We're going to impress you with his 40 time. Might probably impress you with his shuttle. He wasn't going to jump out of the gym with a big vertical, but that doesn't matter at the running back spot. And I think Holly's the same way. I think if you get him and Caleb Jackson from Liberty, two big-time running backs, I think both those guys complement each other. You got the power back in Caleb at Liberty, and which is shocking to me that Saban didn't go by that school while he was here today, because everybody in the country wants Caleb next year. And then Trey Holly. I think you get those two if you're Frank Wilson and you're as happy as you can be.
Last one, and on the running back position because of that. Do you think it's okay if they miss on Trevante Citizen because of that? Look, we've seen LSU, because you've had great backs in the past, Leonard Fournette, you don't take them then because you're going after Leonard. Is there a scenario, though, Mike, you might not take another back in this class? And
I think you do everything you can to get Citizen, okay, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't.
Right. Well,
I assure you, some coach at LSU saying, "Man, I wish you wouldn't say that," but because you don't want to talk that way. But in reality, I think if you can shore up Holly and Caleb Jackson next year, you got Noah Kane coming in and Emery off of knee surgery, Tyrion Davis-Price. I mean, you've got some backs there, but you don't want to go a year without a running back, a high school running back.
Right.
So, but I don't think it wipes you out or hurts you real bad as long as you keep those two kids next year at home.
Last one, I promise. Swear to God.
Go ahead.
How do you like watching the Bengals and OBJ and these kids just absolutely killing it? OBJ getting another catch, another touch. Mike, I swear to God, it's like people think that Louisiana doesn't have elite talent. I mean, Brian Kelly's in a world of – I mean, he knows, but does he really know? I mean, Mike, it's all over the place. I mean, it's a joy to watch.
Yeah, it's and look, it really comes more into focus, not only what the Louisiana kids are doing at the NFL level, but it really comes into focus when you start looking at the transfer portal and the kids that left the program and where were they from? Were they from Louisiana or were they from out of state? And so when you start putting together your junior days and you start putting together your elite camp and who you want to come to one of your 3 or 4 camps in June, you really want to canvass this entire state and maybe not discount a kid because there's a measurable you don't like. It's not always the case that the grass is greener with a kid from IMG or Arkansas or Missouri or parts of Texas. If there's a Louisiana kid that you can get it done, that's grades out just about the same, you take the Louisiana kid.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And so it used to be where we would chart it, and I wanted to say it was 73% that if LSU was always going to be a high success if 73% of the recruiting class was from the state of Louisiana, and it might need to go higher now with NIL. Does that number need to start hitting 80?
Well, it looks like Brian Kelly is doing that, though, Mike. I mean, hell, look at it. I mean, even the kids from the portal. I mean, even with the Louisiana tie. But look,
yeah. So if you get close to 80% of Louisiana, and then the big majority of your 20% out of state is an elite quarterback, if your state's not producing it that year, and an offensive lineman,
right?
Then that's the recipe,
Mike. And look, there's a chance that they sign 6 offensive linemen in this class, maybe 7. I mean, depending. I
really think it you want to jump up and down if you're an LSU fan when you see that there's a center in this coming LSU from the portal, because I think that's the position that everybody wrings their hands about with LSU. I actually think that's the position that could come along a lot quicker than people think.
I agree with that.
Just need a center. Just need a bona fide, highly intelligent center that you can pilfer from a Power 5 school that, was right on the cusp of being a first or second team all conference.
Right. Mike Scarborough from TigerBait.com, my good friend. You got a lot of stuff. I'm always getting the text message, the emails, the notifications. It always reminds me, look, we're doing the news, but sure as hell, the text message is coming before I can hit post on Twitter or Facebook. But Mike, tell them everywhere they can catch all your stuff at TigerBait.com.
That's it, tigerbait.com, and check out our YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on Tigerbait. Buddy and I are going live tomorrow night, so I think we're gonna flip flop with Preston. So we're actually gonna have a doubleheader tomorrow night.
Awesome. Well, we'll be tuning in to you after our show. That's for sure. All right, Mike. We'll see you soon, my friend.
All right, guys. Talk soon. Later.
All right,